What's up, guys? It's me, Rustic, your smart money trader. And due to popular demand, I decided to start making some educational videos on how to use some of the trading tools that are inside of TradingView. They are accessible for the free version as well as the paid versions. And so we're going to start looking at how to use different tools because a lot of you guys are just jumping into the trading business, very interested. I get a lot of questions. Hey, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? So we're just going to start doing some tutorials on how to use your TradingView indicators. I'm hoping that allows people to start to feel more comfortable to follow along with me while I'm charting and posting in my socials, and they'll be able to kind of follow along and better understand what's being said, but also know how to do it on their chart themselves. Because a lot of times during our live videos, we already have those levels and those trend lines and those fib levels and those, all those different things. They're already charted out, and so we start discussing them. But if you don't know how to chart them yourself, you may not know how to get it on there so that you can follow along and keep those important pieces of information on your chart. So we're going to start off with a lesson on how to draw trend lines. Okay, trend lines are very important because they can show you what the overall trend is. But when you drop down into different time frames, you can also look for breakouts or breakdowns of trend lines. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at where your tool is to draw trend lines. So right here over on the toolbar, we're going to pick the one that looks like a line, right? And if you click this little arrow, you have a lot of different options for lines, channels, and pitchforks. Okay, we're not going to look at the pitchforks as much. I could show you kind of what they look like, but what I do want to show you is today how to draw trend lines, and we're going to look at regular trend lines, horizontal lines and rays, vertical lines, parallel channels, okay, as all different types of trend lines. So we'll start off with the regular trend line. Okay, there are hotkeys if you are good with the computer and good with the keyboard and can remember hotkeys. I don't remember them and I don't use them that often, but there are a lot of hotkeys built into Tesla where you would not have to come over here. You could just hit Alt-T. Okay, so let's try that out. Okay, Alt-T. Okay, turns on. You see the trend line tool turns blue. That means it's activated. And we're going to look at drawing our first trend line. Okay, we're going to take trend lines go from point to point. They can be extended out as far as you like, but with trend lines, when we're trying to establish a trend, we're looking to connect one point to another and then potentially extend it out to see where price might possibly retest that trend line. So we're going to look at this low here. I'm on Tesla daily chart. This is from January 6th, 2023. I'm going to connect it to this point, okay, which is Thursday, April 27th, 2023. Okay, so now you can see, right, we've connected these 2 points. You say, but Rustic, what does that tell us? Well, it doesn't really tell us anything because that's a run up and then comes back down. That makes our first 2 points, right? So what we want to do is we want to extend it out, but we want to make sure that we're still touching this point here. We're still anchored to this original point down here. And when we extend that out, we can see, okay, that when this move down happened, we did not hit the trend line. We've bounced, and we may come back down and test the trend line. Okay, so this trend line has continued to offer support, right? As far as we haven't even tested it, but it has continued to be unbroken. Okay, so if we were to see a move down, we could see that trend line broken. See? All right. We could see it hit as support, or we could see it broken down through. So that's a trend line, right? And they're all over the place, connecting different points. you could go here to here. Okay, we've now connected those 2 points. And if you extend them out, those points will eventually cross or come to an apex, right, which causes us to have a triangle pattern. And if you look at this move here, it's kind of a giant, giant bull flag. Right? So, trend lines everywhere, right? We can connect any 2 points and we could say it's a trend line. And you can look for price to break above. Okay, connecting this point here to this point here and following it through. Okay, it acted as resistance. Okay, we got the trend line. Resistance, ran off of it, set this original 2 spots, right? And we would have extended it through. And when it ran through, look at how parabolic price goes when it broke this trend line, right? Boom, just shot up, rocketed up. So, having that trend line there, which you would have connected this point to this point and it just extended it through as you watch price develop, right? And that breakout of the trend line led to a massive rally. Okay, let's look for some other trend lines that could have given us different indicators, right? This point to this point. Okay, this is a very aggressive trend line. Making sure that the tops touch. Okay, we're going to extend it down here. And we're going to see that when price broke out, this candle broke 2. This candle gapped it, traded back down to test it. A few days later, went parabolic. Not as big as this move because this was a much greater trend. If you look, it started in November 1st, was that candle that we started our peak, all the way to May of 2023. So November 1st, 2022, May 2023. So what, 6 months? So that was a big trend line that we were watching. Right? This one was only mid-July to mid-August. So this was a 1 month trend. It was aggressive. When it broke, you wouldn't expect such a move because this was a much bigger move here. So we caught a nice big rally off of it. So where could we look at other trend lines? Well, we have one that's potentially developing right now. We have this trend line. Okay, so we're going to make sure those bottoms touch. Right, bottom to bottom. Because we had a wick today in today's price. So what we want to watch for and see is, does this trend line get broken? If we come back down and start trading below it, trend line's broken, could come back down to this trend line. Right? So lots of trend lines all over the place. Right? We could say this one to this one. Trend lines can be aggressive. Trend lines cannot be aggressive. Right? This one's a very subtle trend line. I wouldn't expect an explosive rally from the time that breaks, but we could expect that if price was to get to that trend line and it broke above, we could look for it to backtest and run higher. Okay, we got more trend lines everywhere. Okay, point to point, right? This one would be a support. So trend lines can be support, trend lines can be resistance. Support is if the trend line is underneath the price, whether it's bearish or bullish, it is support. If the trend line is above the price, bearish or bullish, it is resistance. So we're looking for price to either reject, okay, or break out, either way. So if you look at this point, right, extend it out. We had a nice trend, rapidly falling, doesn't ever really test it, right? Had a little reversal, and then it ended up breaking out and heading back higher. So if you connected this trend line, right, because you got two tops there, and you extend it out, right, what happens? We had kind of a channel, a falling channel, right? And when price broke above the resistance of the falling channel, look at what happened. Boom, price ran up quickly, rapidly, just like we saw over here, right? So trend lines break. We're looking for runs. We're looking to see price break out or down from and back test potentially. This one did not even back test all the way and then went running. Okay, so different trend lines all over the place. It applies on every time frame. Okay, you can, if you're a day trader and you're doing 1 minute time frame, there's a lot of changing trends and a lot of variation depending on if it's a day of chop or if it's headed in a direction. But they are on every time frame. Okay. So the next thing we're going to look at is parallel channels. So much like trend lines, parallel channels are just going to give you two parallel trend lines. Okay, so same idea. The parallel channels extend themselves out. You're going to point, and then you can extend above or below, depending on where you're setting your points. I did my points as support, and then I expand resistance. Okay, so when I do that, what I can see is that we got our support level, right? And we have a resistance. So you could use the previous spot where it came from as the original, right? Because here we have 1 point, 2 point, and we only have one high point at this point. Or you could look for a previous high. Okay, so we do have a previous high here. And let's see if we can adjust it. It's not going to work for that. So even down here, you would not know price actually happened yet. But let's just see. Oh, it's not going to let us. Here we go. Oh, there's the expansion. Okay, so even though we don't know price is going to head up here, if we were using these 2 points here, and this previous point here, you can see that it could project the upper spot where we're going to hit. It doesn't show that as a support, right? So that could be, if you were using this point here with these two bottoms, and then you had price here, you could look at drawing a trend here to here as well, and then running it through. And again, you have another point where it broke out from. Okay, so you can be running different trends and different channels all at the same time. You can also look to see where trends and channels cross, right? So we have this point, we have this point, right? Let's go like that. And that gives us a pretty clear area that when price broke out from this trend line, back tested this trend line and this channel, it ran up, right? So that's a nice spot where you could have entered into a position strictly just using trend lines. So you don't need a bunch of fancy indicators if you're going to just trade trends. Breakouts, breakdowns are what you're looking for. Okay. So again, with the channels, we'll do one more so you guys can see what that looks like. Right now, current move that we're in. Okay, I'm going to go resistance on this one, top to top. Okay, and let's see what we got. I'm going to go down here to bottom. So you can see we have a channel. I'm going to pull it out and see if there's anything I notice. Okay, and not necessarily. So what I'm looking at, top, bottom. Okay, we got resistance, top, top. Okay, we've traded off of it. The middle line shows the equilibrium or consequent encroachment or mean value, whatever you want to call it, the middle point of the channel. I want to show you guys how to open your settings. If you haven't ever done this on any tool that you use, you should be able to click on it or tap on it if you're using a mobile device. Go to settings. You can change different things. Okay, I can take out the middle line. I can change the colors, right? Gray, black, purple, red, whatever you want. Okay. You can change the thickness. You can change dotted, dashed lines. These are all preferences, right? But they're adjustable. You can add a background color. Okay. Maybe you want that channel to stick out for some reason. Okay. When you're picking the color, you can also change how dark it is by adjusting the opacity. Okay. And then you can also save templates. So if you have different kind of settings for different things, you can save that setting and it will show here under different templates. You can also just change it back to the default settings there. All right, so we got this current channel. We just rejected the midpoint, right? We could see that run back up to here, or we could see it drop below and test the lower channel. So that's channels for you. Again, works on all time frames. We're just connecting points, and then it's going to show support and resistance. Next thing I want to show you guys is how to do levels. These are horizontal levels. Okay, they're a type of trend line as well, but or a type of line. They don't show a trend; they show a level. And there's two different ones that I typically use. You can use all kinds of different ones. The ray is going to be an extending line using 2 points, right? And it's going to anchor to 2 different points. So there we got it anchored, right? I don't use that one too much, but that's what it is. Okay. The extended line just extends it out, again, anchored to 2 points. Okay, but it goes infinite left and right. Again, you can change your settings, you can change your thickness, all that kind of stuff. One I typically use is the horizontal ray, but I'm going to show you the horizontal line. That's just picking 1 point anywhere. It's going to draw infinite line to the left and to the right. So let's say we want to target, this high up here. I'm going to put the cursor right on the top of the wick. I'm going to press it. There we go. Okay, sometimes it doesn't always fill or put it right on the right spot, so you can adjust it by just grabbing it and bringing it down, bringing it up. And that line goes infinite. It's not anchored to anything necessarily. If you want to move it, you can just grab it right here, right? Moves it up or down. You can also just grab it anywhere with the hand icon, moves it up or down. Okay. Shows a price point over on the right hand on your price bar. So that's nice because it labels exactly where price is. So sometimes you guys hear me on my analysis videos saying this level, that level, right? You want to show gaps maybe, right? Well, you can throw here, right? Boom, there's a gap. It's not anchored to anything, so it's going to run across your entire screen. Some people like to use the horizontal levels as areas to show where potential consolidation happened. So you could throw right like that, and you can see there's consolidation here. And then with the lines instead of the rays, because it goes back all the way, then you can pull back and see, was there other areas of consolidation that happened within that range? Well, look, we kind of consolidated in here, right? I wouldn't say we necessarily consolidated in there, but we came back and we consolidated in there. So you could say it was a minor. I wouldn't call it a major consolidation zone, but you could call it a minor one. So that's something that the horizontal rays are good for, is identifying kind of ranges across the entire chart. I'm going to show you how to use the ray. The horizontal ray is by far my favorite line tool to use. The reason I like it is because you can anchor it to a specific candle, right? And so what I mean by that is say I want to look at this candle close, up closed candle, and this candle where we traded down to. Okay, inside of that would be a volume imbalance, right? But I can anchor it to specific candles. So it's anchored to this candle, it's anchored to this candle. If I drop down into the daily chart or the 1 hour chart, the 5 minute chart, it's all going to be anchored into the same area, right? So it's really nice because if I'm trying to, highlight something specifically like this, I might double click. There's a text box for your lines, and I might say volume imbalance. And check that out right there. You can do the same thing with your trend lines. So I want to show you that. I forgot to mention that earlier, but watch this. If you want to label a trend line, you could call it daily trend line, right? Or actually daily bullish trend line. And that's going to show up right there. So when you drop down to other time frames, you already have it labeled. Other things you can adjust is the alignment. You can have it on the bottom, you can have it go to the right. See? Underneath the line, all the way on the right hand side, so that when you drop down, it's still right there on the right hand side. Sometimes when you drop down into lower charts, if it's in the center, you won't see the labeling anymore. Okay, I like mine on the middle center, but again, those things are preference. So, labeling your lines so you know what they mean. When you start labeling a lot of levels, it does help to know, what that level belongs to, why it's there, how it got there, where it's anchored to. Okay, so those are some of the important things, in my opinion, as far as the lines go, of things to use. So I want to look at a couple other things, and I don't really use these very often, but if you were trying to say section off a certain, let's say you want to look at a 1 month period, you could use a vertical ray, okay, and a vertical line, And so we're looking at here, Wednesday, the 19th of July. We're going to go all the way out to August 18th, which would have been a Friday, so there's no 19th. And then we're going to say there's a 1 month period, right? So you could say for this 1 month period, it was bearish, right? Traded down the entire time. So we're just looking, if you want to just section off areas, that's what that tool could be used for. Last thing I'm going to show you, I don't use the flat top bottom, I don't use the disjoint channel, but the pitchforks can sometimes be fun to use. I'd say if you are going to use them, just practice to see, how you feel about it, because they are interesting, and they can provide some projection if you have some points. But if you want further understanding of how to use the pitchfork, the shift pitchfork, the modified pitchfork, right, you can go ahead and find those on YouTube quite often. But you basically use multiple points, okay, and you can project. So let's actually say this point here, okay, but you got to wait for price to make moves in order to get that. So what this does is it shows us using this point, and this point, that we kind of have this massive channel, right? And there are multiple channels within channels, and they have median prices in the dotted line in between the channels themselves. So some people could say that, if we break out above 1, we'd be looking to test basically the next line. In this case, it's a bullish, in a bullish trend that we're looking at. But as price comes off of this line, we target this line, right? Price moved rapidly above it, we target this line. Price continues to move above it, target this line, right? And then even though it went higher, it rejected this line. Okay, and then as it came back through this one, targeted this one, tested this one. Okay, now we're back up through this one. As we're heading up, we targeted this one, didn't quite make it. came back down to this one, came back down to this one. So some people could use it to trade. I don't specifically use it. Once in a while I'll throw it up to just see kind of, are we pushing an upper or lower boundary of it? Because if we were all the way down, say on this yellow line, which if price starts falling on Tesla, we might look at this 210 to 220 level and say, using the Pitchfork tool, I wouldn't expect price to fall much below this yellow line if it did at all. If it did, using this tool, we're falling into no man's land. But it also could say, if you're hopeful and you look at it on kind of a longer time frame, right? Like as we push up, 3, 4, 500, right? Would we be testing this? And I would not be expecting it to trade much outside the yellow boundary. So that could be a cool tool to use when you're looking just kind of ahead at where price might potentially go in the future. So thank you guys for tuning in. This has been an episode on how to draw trend lines, use different line tools within TradingView. If you like the content, like my video, subscribe, turn on the bell notifications, send it to your friends and family or anybody that you think might be interested in taking some lessons on how to use tools within TradingView. I'll be posting more content in the future, and I hope you guys have a great night. Also, don't forget to watch my Tesla daily analysis on the channel as well. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.